All right. Hi, friends. Thank you for joining us for our inaugural Science 100. I don't have a good name for this. It's like a review session of the course ahead of it being taught in its current iteration for the first time. And Erica, our lovely developer and course mentor, is with us today to do kind of a quick overview walkthrough of everything that you're seeing on there. So if you have questions at any point in time, feel free to chime in. Like I mentioned earlier, this is going to go out to the instructor org, and we're going to basically keep this for each semester until the course gets redeveloped in some way again. So for posterity's sake, if you have any questions that you feel might be useful for new instructors as they come on and maybe watch this in the future, or any advice or suggestions or tips for teaching the course, go for it. We might as well make this a beautiful community event, right? And then Carmen has joined us. I don't know how long she can stay here because I know the faculty leads got booked in like 7,000 things. But if you have any questions for her related to like scheduling sections, stuff like that, she would be the person to answer those questions. But for the sake of time, if you're ready, Erica, go for it.
Okay, so thanks. Just give you a background. So my name is Erica Barrow. I've been with Ivy Tech for a very long time. I started teaching as an adjunct in 2004. And I've really been interested in teaching online, bringing science into the online world. So this is something that I'm very interested in, but I'm out of the Indianapolis campus. And what we've done is take Science 100, which is Earth Science, and redeveloped it just slightly to tweak it. So for those of you that have taught it in the past, you know that we used to have proctored exams and they are no longer proctored. And so we had to reckon with that and do some minor changes for things. So the exams are no longer proctored. And I sort of designed things with that in mind, but I also wanted to redesign with the part-time adjunct time frame in mind. So we didn't want to overburden adjuncts with a ton of grading. So we didn't want to make this all short answer. We didn't want to make this all essay. It's not fair to students, not fair to instructors. So we tried to marry this a little bit with self-grading and then instructor graded stuff with it. For those of you that have taught this before, you'll see that the structure really hasn't changed. It's still the same content, same amount of points, just some small tweaks here and there. I would love feedback from this. This is a work in progress. Those of you that have been teaching for me for a while know I always tweak things, whether it's in person or whether it's online. So I would love to make this better. If you have suggestions on how to make it better, please let me know. And during this time, if you have any questions, just feel free to interrupt me. You're not gonna mess up my flow. No worries at all from that. So let me share my screen real quick. Okay, so everybody see that? Give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
Cool. Yep. So this is the new Science 100 master shell. It was developed over, so it's been a while for me, but it's new to some of you. So we started this process in January, and it's still the same 8 modules that we had before. There's still 2 smaller chapter tests, and there's still a cumulative final exam. So that has not changed from the past. It still goes in the same order. So you kind of do a basic introduction, you do plate tectonics, earthquakes, volcanoes, you do surface processes, little hydrogeology, you get into Earth's history, you do some oceanography, meteorology, and you end up with climatology. So the structure has not changed from what you saw before. The order of materials, it's still the same book. It is inclusive access. So we started this in the spring and it carries over. So you'll see right off the bat that this is inclusive access, which means that students pay a fee already to have access to the e-textbook. So that's already in there. There should be nobody that's like, I can't get access to the book, because it's all here. And the way that they access the book is through this, it's this link on the left-hand side called BNC Bookshelf. And it's very easy. I've not had any troubles in the spring semester. I don't know if anybody else did.
Erica, I'm just going to chime in super quick.
Sure.
Since you just have to imagine troubles. Since we do have a lot of sections of Science 100, if you do happen to have any issues with your BNC bookshelf link, like when you click on it, you don't see that there is a text attached to it, which if Erica, if you clicked on it now, you'd see that, because this is a master shell and it doesn't mean anything. But if you see that you don't have a text assigned associated with the course, you're going to want to put in a help desk ticket or service now, or whatever they call it. That is something that BNC like pairs your course to your text. So help desk, if you're not.
Is it because it's the master, Adita, is why it's not showing up?
Yeah, if you go into your actual live section, you'll click on that link and then you should see like a picture of the textbook, and it'll be like, hey, here's
I'll click real quick just because I got mine set up yesterday.
Yeah.
So this is my summer section.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. So that's what you should see. If you don't see that, you're going to want to put in a help desk ticket and they'll get that fixed for you.
Quick question, is there a low-cost printed version of this available?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yeah, so let me go back and show you the link here, Keith. So I'm back in the master shell. And if you go into the syllabus, just because we're scrolling here a little bit, syllabus setup is pretty much the same as always. But if you get to the required text material, so it's got the little note to students that there is, it's already included for the e-textbook, but there's a link here, Keith, where you can get the low cost print option. So there are always students that want that paper copy. So this is here if you want it. It's still, yeah, so it's still, there's still no required lab manual. There's still no required like lab kits or anything. So there's no additional fee. It's just the textbook on here.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure. Other questions about textbook at all?
Nope, that was my question.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't know how long it takes to do the low cost print option. And I don't really know. I don't know if it's a PDF that you get sent and then they print it out. I don't know if it comes from the bookstore. Adita, do you know?
I think it is generally like one of those crappy kind of like loose leaf options. Maybe they go to the trouble of spiral bounding it, but it is intended to be low cost, so it's not very pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's in color, right?
I would assume so.
Okay.
If that's necessary for the content, I would assume so, yeah.
Sorry, they're doing yard work right outside my window at this point. I apologize. Okay. So new things for the class. So you'll notice here on the syllabus that there is, it's just organized a little bit cleaner. So the syllabus has, it's your name at the top, and then it comes the technical support and the contacts for different things. And then it's got a little further down, it's got Carmen's contact information. So Carmen is the, well, Carmen, you're the faculty lead now. You're not the assistant faculty lead here, right? I think your title changed.
I'm actually, I'm still the assistant faculty lead.
Oh.
It's a really goofy title structure, but I'm full-time. So you guys are my only responsibility now.
Yes.
The distinction is that I think the faculty lead gets a whole school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Carmen is just stuck with program.
Physical science.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's right. That's good. Okay,
Yeah.
so Carmen's listed down here as your supervisor. And then if you are full-time, you want to list your campus supervisor. If you are just part-time, then you would just delete this section. So there's no need to put me on there at all. I mean, you can if you want to, but this is really only for full-time people to put this campus supervisor thing here. We've got the required textbook listed. It's still the 15th edition. So we do not have a new edition of the textbook. The last I talked to Pearson, It's still a ways off for the next edition. So we're with this one for a while. And again, there's no lab manual. There's no requirement for mastering geology. So there's no extra publisher content that they have to buy for students. You'll notice the course outline and record, the physical science curriculum committee did add one objective for us that's new. So all the first 12 are the same as what we've had in the past. The last one just says locate reliable sources of scientific evidence to construct arguments related to real world issues. So that's pretty easy. We meet that already. I'm glad they added that requirement in there. But that's the only change to the course outline of record from previous. Let's see. All of this is the same. So this is still a completely online class. You can still set up your grades for distance education. The suggested deadlines are listed on Sundays, so you can do that. But if you would like to change it, feel free to customize those deadlines if you want. I still have the suggested late assignments being graded as a 0 in here. That's worked well for me in the past. I don't know what other people do, but this assigning a 0 in here for students keeps them accountable for those deadlines, and I feel like works well, but you can change that if you want. The drop deadline stayed the same. That's updated for us. So it's June 10th for the summer. Last day to withdraw is July 17th. And this part of this is a little new, so I'll take a little time to highlight this. So IvyOnline has suggested in their best practices that all online courses have a live synchronous session, like a welcome session for students. And what you want to do is you would schedule this via Zoom. So it's in the first 2 weeks of the course, and you're going to schedule, I scheduled it for an hour for students, and I put it in the evening. I scheduled it, mine is going to be next Wednesday at 6:30 to give you an idea. So I put it in the evening. I thought I'd hit most people on a Wednesday. I thought that would give them enough time because the due date for the first week is on Sunday. So I thought that would work well. I personally do it on the first week of class, but you have 2 weeks to do this. And to schedule this, you would go through your Zoom link. So on the left-hand side here, you've got Zoom, and you would just schedule a new meeting over here for students. Let me just point out that this is a requirement now to have this live session, and it is something that you're gonna want to record for students. And just to give it, this is gonna sound terrible, but in the spring we started this, and I've only had 2 students show up for all of my classes. I know that sounds terrible, but it was very helpful for those 2 students who showed up. And I recorded it, and then I posted it, and then I looked to see how many people watched it later. And about half the class did watch it later. So I guess they just weren't able to come to that session. So it is helpful. It is something that students have used. I know sometimes it can be a little burdensome for people, but is there any questions about this live session? Just because this is kind of new.
I will just chime in super duper quick. We did also add some additional resources for courses that went out for summer semester. So there's already a page or an assignment built into module 1. It's the very last thing that's on there.
Yeah, I'll show you that in a second.
Yeah, and then there is also a link in the instructor resources that gives you some, it's like the live assignment instructions, I think is what it's called. It'll give you some more information on that too.
Mm-hmm. Questions? Other questions?
Nope.
Okay. And again, I schedule it for an hour. I use an hour just because I talk a lot, and I try to get to know them a little bit. But I don't think there's a minimum time frame. It's just a matter of being available for live questions during this. Okay, I'll move on in the interest of time. So Communication is the same. I will highlight this because sometimes people forget the Ivy Tech system. We have a 36-hour requirement for people to respond back to student inquiries. So 36 hours, including weekends. I know that's not the greatest thing in the world, but that's the policy that we have. So try to check in, encourage your students to check in every day or so with this. The excuse me, assignments and grading hasn't really changed all that much. Those of you that have taught this before will see we still have chapter quizzes. So there's still 18 chapters that we're covering. There's still 18 chapter quizzes. There's still 15 questions. Students get 2 attempts on these. Oops. And there's a 1-hour time limit. So this has not changed at all. I did go through and just try to add more questions to it. But otherwise it's still multiple choice and true false questions for those. There's still some discussion boards. I don't have one every week. We have one in the first module, one for volcanoes, one for the current event assignment, and then one for climate change. So that has not changed. And the discussion boards are still an original post by the students and then 2 replies to other students. I did tweak a few in terms of the wording. Let me just show you what these look like. So for example, the first introductory post, again, it's still worth 15 points. It still has a 200-word minimum for that initial post. I know that's kind of hard to figure out how many words students are writing. I just look for a rough length for them. And I did put in here, so what's your background, the time commitments for students. I did add in a request for them to look at the course objectives in that discussion post. So what objectives are they most interested in and what do they hope to gain from it? They do have 2 other replies to other students that they have to do. It's a 50-word minimum, so it's pretty standard, but you'll notice that this just got tweaked a little bit from previous semesters. The other tweak I'll point out is there is still a current event assignment and it's still broken into 3 pieces. There's still a quiz, there's still a discussion, and there's still an essay. On the discussion part of it, I did beef this up in terms of the points for that current event discussion. So in previous semesters, the discussion was only worth 15 points. And I found that a lot of students were not doing it. They just blew it off because it was only 15 points. So I beefed it up a little bit and then I cleaned up some of the parts for this discussion. So I said, we gave them an example of a quality source article. That's the same. Why is an example of a high quality source? We gave them 4 example essays from other students. I did tweak these a little bit. So we give them an A essay, a B, a C, and a D, just to give them more examples of what previous students have written about. Like, here's what a good one is. Here's what a sort of okay and a not so okay one is. And then part 3, I want a specific topic that they're interested in researching and a specific source. And I put description in here to say that don't just give me a topic, also give me what are you interested in regarding that topic. So for example, students will say something generic like, oh, I'm interested in earthquakes. Well, what is it about earthquakes that you would like to research? Because I find that a problem that students have is they just do a book report on earthquakes.
Yep.
They don't understand that they're supposed to look for real data, current studies, things like that. So I'm trying to make it more obvious. I don't know how more obvious I can get, but we'll keep trying with this. So that's a small little tweak from previous ones. Let me go back. So again, I'm still on that syllabus. So those were the discussions. There's still diagrams. So a part of this class that I really like, and I think the students like it after they get comfortable with it. Initially, they're a little scared, but over time, they figure out it's a good thing. There's still drawings, diagrams that they're going to do. They've got 5 diagrams. I didn't change the number of diagrams. I did clean up the examples of them. So let me show you the first one. So the first diagram is the rock cycle, and they do that in the very first module, the first week. What I cleaned up a little bit was the examples that were in here. For example, I put in examples of actual student work rather than like internet, like Google examples. I put in, here's what students have done in the past. So they get an idea, here's on a rock cycle, this person did a really good job. They put in the difference between intrusive and extrusive igneous rocks. So they're using, I'm showing them examples of what a student did in the past. I think that it's going to work well. So we have good examples, like okay examples, and then crappy examples.
Eric, could I
Sure.
stop you for just a second? Okay.
Sure.
Obviously not for this cycle, but in the future, we should consider the file formats that are available because they're multiplying like crazy. And
Yes.
I think if we nail it down to like JPEGs or PDFs, we'd be in good shape because Apple can generate a new file format about every 24 hours. And unfortunately, Canvas doesn't necessarily provide new viewers. Okay, This has been driving me crazy in other courses.
Yeah.
I second that.
Okay, noted. I think I had this discussion earlier when we first started the process, and I think the suggestion was to keep it as open as possible, but I do hear you. Yeah, I do. I too totally understand what they're saying with this. Now there is, and I think John asked this question before about the rubrics. So there are some very generic rubrics that I put in here, and they're always in the direction so students can see these, and it just kind of breaks this apart into out of the 15 points, 12 points are content related and only 3 points are creativity, originality, and all of this. So the rubrics are there for you to fill out. Honestly, I don't use them very much. I put my explanation into the comments section. I don't personally use the rubrics, but it's there if you want to for this. And these are visible. I know, John, you had a question about that. Students can see this when they're doing this.
Well, actually, my question was slightly different, but I got it, resolved.
Figured out. Okay,
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So those are the diagrams. And going in, if you've not taught this before, sometimes the diagrams are intimidating to students. After the first one, they calm down and they understand it. But at the very first, they are a little intimidated by them. We're not looking for artistic perfection. We're not grading on is this a Rembrandt? We're grading on content and how you can relate the content and make it your own with this. Labs. So there are the same style of labs that we had before in the online class. So there's 6 of them. They're online or common household things. The difference is that the lab quizzes now, so they do the lab to start with. It's a worksheet, flow charts, things like that. They work through the worksheets and then they take a quiz. The quizzes previously were self-graded. Now, the lab quizzes are multiple choice questions and 1 short answer question. So you guys are going to have to grade the lab quizzes now. It's 1 question per lab quiz. I'm not trying to overburden you. It's 1 question. And I'm just trying to get away from, because these questions are out there online. And so I'm trying to get them to do 1 short answer question. We'll see how this works. I have a feeling that they're just going to skip this question. They're just going to be lazy and they're just going to skip it, but we'll try it and we'll see how it works with this. I don't have an answer key for the short answer question, and I did that on purpose. Let me show you So let me show you what this looks like. So for the first one, for example, the first lab that they do in module 1 is on minerals. It's the same content as before. So it's still directions, worksheet, and then some flow charts. It's the same thing. The difference is that there is a short answer question, and the question is, Earth materials are classified as minerals, exhibit 5 specific characteristics. In your own words, describe the key characteristics of a mineral. So in all of these lab quizzes, you're going to see I put in there specifically, write this in your own words. So that's why there's not a specific answer key, because I want it to be on the instructor to decide, where are these, how correct is the student for these. So if you do have questions about the short answers, just let me know, I can help. But the questions are pretty basic, in my opinion. And so that's why there is not an answer key for this. So you do have to hand grade it. So once a week, you're gonna have to pop in here and hand grade these things. Any questions about this? Otherwise, the questions are the same style as before. So it's just multiple choice, self-graded stuff. There's just that one, and I put it at the beginning. I'm trying to trick them into grading it, into doing it by putting it first. So the short answer question will always be first in the quiz. Ha -ha.
Good choice, Erica.
Ha -ha.
Yes, haha.
Strategy is everything.
Absolutely.
I try. Okay, so back on the syllabus. So those are the labs. Again, the content didn't change, just the addition of the short answer question. The current event assignment. So I mentioned it before, there is still the current events assignment. It's still divided into 3 parts. It's a quiz, a discussion, and an essay. I did rework it a little bit to clean up the language. So let me go show you what this looks like. Okay, so the current event guidelines, it's still 100 points. I just made it a little more obvious when things were due. It frustrated me every semester that students would think the essay was due in module 2.
Yeah.
They didn't understand that it was supposed to be done in pieces. So it specifically states there's a 10-point quiz, there's a 25-point discussion, and there's a 65-point essay, and they're all due at different times. We're trying to work them up to that essay. I did not change the idea of the assignment, so it's still scientific magazines, journals. There's still online sources here. I give them a list of possible topics. It's still materials within the last 3 years. It's still 2 primary source articles. I did add in more suggestions for how they evaluate sources. So I linked directly in the directions to the Purdue OWL website to give them an idea of here's scholarly versus popular sources, to try to show them how you tell a blog from a journal that has some background to it. I also cleaned up a little bit, so I tried to simplify it for students. So they still look at author qualifications, they still do a summary, they still do a critique, but as we all know, the critique is the hard part. They can never quite get the difference between a summary and a critique. So I put a link in here to a really nice resource that was put together. I didn't do this, I totally stole this, but it's going over the difference between a summary and a critique for students. And the difference for them is pretty simple, I think, for students, but for those of us that have taught it for a while, this is a big deal to get that summary versus critique thing down. I also added in a direct link to APA formatting. Again, we went to the OWL website, so this is a specific guide on APA formatting for this. So again, it didn't really change too much. I just tried to clean it up. And there is a rubric on here that did not change how the points are kind of assigned. I just tried to clean up and make it more obvious for students.
Thank you, Erica, because that was one of the problems that I saw in my students is they thought that, for example, a bunch of them sent in the assignment in module 1.
Yeah.
I mean, the essay in module 1. And I wrote back saying, you don't have to do it right now. You can redo it if you wish, but as much as we think the words made sense, they didn't always.
Right.
I think that has to do with a lot of the students being overwhelmed with this whole thing. And I think we all got to remember that. Not only our students, but we are overwhelmed by all this, demand, this last minute demand on reinventing ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so hopefully this will help with things. Like I said, this is always a work in progress. So that came from comments from students, from adjuncts. So I do listen to you guys. When you send me things, when you tell me things, I do listen and I try to tweak it to make it better for everybody on this. So that's the current events. Again, I'm back on the syllabus here. If I scroll down, tests and exams. So there's still 3 tests. So there's 2 kind of smaller chapter tests, and there's still 1 big cumulative test. The difference, so let me show you the difference from previous ones. So go into quizzes, and again, this is the master. So this is, I'll show you what it looks like. There's still a practice that they're required to do, and there's still a real test. The difference you'll notice is that there is, for the practice test and for the real test, there is short answer questions. These are not essay questions, they are short answer questions. So this, it will have to be hand graded by you guys. But again, it is 1 question on the practice test. And on the real test, it is 2 short answer questions for them to do, okay? I will say, and I don't remember when we did this change, I put the short answer questions first so that they would do those first. And again, the questions are gonna look a lot like the lab quiz questions. So in your own words, describe the interior structure of the Earth and the layers. Be sure to include the names, thicknesses, basic composition of each layer. So it's 4 points for the short answer questions. The next one, describe the difference between observation, hypothesis, theory, and law in a scientific concept. There's still the diagrams. So there is these like a rock cycle or a water cycle diagram. So those are in there, but these are still self-grading. So I'm trying to minimize the requirement for you guys to have to grade the other things, but these are harder for students to Google.
Hey, Gary, Erica, I have a very quick question about the Earth layers diagram.
Mm-hmm.
If they do a lot of digging in a couple of different chapters, they can come up with something better than, they tend to do phases of matter, like liquid or solid versus actual compositions.
Right.
Do you make notes that they should say, it's mostly peridotite in parts of the mantle, or just go with the iron nickel for the core, or what?
Yeah, so that is, Vicky, a great higher level question. I personally am happy if they can tell me basic mineral composition, like in general. Like this is solid nickel and iron, this is liquid nickel and iron. I am very basic. I kind of left it up to, if you want to put that in there, I would be totally supportive of that, Vicky. I know you and your you know, petrology background, volcanology. It's great. I love it. But no, it's not in here, Vicky.
Okay.
Other questions? And again, the order for these is always short answer first, and then the diagrams. And then we get to the just basic multiple choice true false stuff. So the order is always the same. The 2 chapter tests are 100 points each. So 46 multiple choice questions, 2 short answer questions. They have a 60-minute time limit. So they're going to have to study and prepare ahead of time.
I have another quick question about the diagrams for the exams.
Yeah.
I had at least one student this last 8 weeks who had to have everything on paper and wanted the diagrams for the exams on paper. How would you handle that?
Sure. Was the rationale because they were a disability student?
No, they had extreme difficulties downloading based on their equipment. Some people try to do this course on their phones.
Sure.
And they have difficulty downloading the PDFs of the diagrams during the exam.
So
Adita, you wanna,
Yeah, so we did, sorry, my cat is attempting to murder me. We did actually switch them out to just be, I think they're like JPEG or PNG files.
Okay.
And so they're directly embedded now. Students don't have to open anything separate. And Erica did also spend quite a bit of effort making sure there was alt text available too on those. So if you do have a student who uses a screen reader, those images are accessible now as well. So fingers crossed that will take care of the problem.
good question. Thanks, Adita, for that. The final exam, I'll just real quick. The final exam is cumulative. It's slightly bigger, so it's worth 120 points. They get a 90-minute time limit. This one has 80 multiple choice questions and 2 short answers, so it's a little bit longer. They get a little bit more time for it. But again, it is still something where the instructor has to hand grade just 2 short answer questions for this. There are still study guides for these tests. So those are still extra credit. I'll scroll down here. So there's still extra credit in the class. The study guides are available for them to do. I did tweak the order a little bit because the study guides are out there and you can just download them online. So I did change the order of the questions. It's still the same content, but now you can't just, they're gonna have to put a little effort into making sure they have the right version of it. And then there's still the short answer at the end of each module for extra credit.
Erica, let me ask a question. I'm not exactly sure how extra credit gets folded into the grading scheme.
Yeah, so the class is worth 1,000 points. And right now the short answers are set to be 0 points. So when you go in and you grade it and you manually add in, let's say 2 points, let's say that just adds into the total at the end.
Oh, okay. So I don't have to actually intervene.
No, you don't have to do anything. You just go in and grade it and it will automatically pop it in there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I try to make it simple, Keith. Other questions about this extra credit? And I'll be honest with you, I was going to take the extra credit out of the class. It made me angry because nobody ever does it. But the curriculum committee said, no, leave it in there. So you can thank your physical sciences curriculum committee because I was going to yank it because the students made me mad. But
I must not have been at that meeting. Darn.
It frustrates me because I'm the kind of person, I'm that AA type personality where if there's extra credit, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do every single bit of extra credit. And it baffles my mind when students don't do the easy extra credit. And this is easy extra credit in my mind. Okay. I think that's kind of it for the class. Oh, I was going to show you the assignment. So there is an updated instructor guide for you guys. And I did send this out in the meeting, in the welcome announcements yesterday. So this is an updated instructor guide. You'll notice it basically the same as before, just simplified for the modules and things. The new piece of this that I wanted to point out is there is a template for announcements. So you guys are required to send out weekly announcements to students, and I made you a template for suggested announcements. So you can just go in here and copy this and turn it into an announcement and reduce your workload.
I love this.
So, so here's your sample announcement. Here's your like module 3. If you're like, oh, what should I put for my module 3 reminder? Here's a real basic one of what like I would send out for things. So you can just copy this, pull it over, put it in your announcements. Obviously change the name from Erica to, you know, Keith or whoever's doing this, but it's all right here. It's just a very simple announcement for people.
I love this pre-formatted warm and fuzzies for the students.
Yes. The other thing I'll show you is at the end of module 1. Adita mentioned this before. At the end of module 1 is this thing called so module 1, 2 introductory live meeting. So actually I'll show it to you in my class, in my real class, because I've set it up already. So this is my summer class, and I already assigned it a date. So when you go into your real class, the introductory live meeting, this is the resources that Adita was talking about before. So this is the live meeting, and there's a spot in here. We're treating it like an assignment, but it's optional. So it's not worth any points. But what making this an assignment does is this puts this on the calendar, and you can assign a due date for students. So like, for example, mine is scheduled for next Wednesday at 6:30. So you just go into Zoom and you would set up the meeting and then copy the invitation into the instructions for this assignment. But then you can assign the due date down here, and then it pops up on the student's calendar. I also put in for my class an announcement that's going to go out. So I set it up. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. So here's my announcement for students that it's set to send out later. But it's got the date, it's got the link on it, all this good stuff for things. But that's the assignment that's in your, and again, that's under module 1/2. Questions? Oops, I'm in my class. Go back to the master.
Yeah. I'm going to chime in with like a couple of notes for seeking assistance. So like I said, if you have any issues with your BNC bookshelf, if you don't see that it's paired with the text, you'll want to put in a help desk ticket for that. And you can actually, there's a link to it right up at the top of the syllabus also, like right on, it's in like the tech support chunk. Which is almost there. There it is. Find answers to questions and request IT or educational technology / IvyOnline support. So that's the one that you can use if BNC bookshelf is not connected. And then Erica, could you go to the modules page real quick? Sweet. And then if you find an issue in the course, which, you know, isn't inevitably going to happen after an edit. So like there's a broken link or contradictory directions on something, maybe something that got changed recently. You know, the wrong answers marked as the correct one on a quiz or something like that. The report course issues link right in the middle of the instructor resources page. That's what you're going to want to use to submit those types of issues. So if it's something that's actually like needs to be fixed, that's what you want to use. And that will automatically generate an email to Erica and myself, so we can get on top of getting that fixed as quick as possible. If you have questions that are more like related to just like delivering the content, or you're looking for maybe clarification on something content related, I would say you could probably just reach out to Erica directly for that. Something that's like not actually something broken in the course. Oh, and then also the instructor org. So if you do submit a course issue report and it's something that does need to get fixed, Erica will post about, or me, one of us will post about the fix in the instructor org. So you can see that she's already posted like the welcome for this semester, but and I don't know if you ever cleaned that out of the old stuff, but if there's something that's broken and we've fixed it, we only fixed in the master, right? That doesn't populate out to all the live sections. So if we get a course issue report, one of us will share with you guys through the instructor org how to go about correcting that issue in your own section. And this doesn't really apply to summer since there's only one term in summer, but we only push out course content once a semester also. So if you're a second 8 weeks course, say in the fall or in the spring, unfortunately, your course content goes out at the same time as first 8 weeks. So you're still stuck with any problems that may have occurred during the first 8 weeks. But you can request a reload of course content should you so desire, but it's up to you to request that. I'm not allowed to put that in. I'm not allowed to touch live sections. So those are some of your channels for assistance. And of course, anything that's like section related, if you've got grade disputes or something, that's all stuff that you'll take to Carmen instead. So ways to reach all of those people are already built into your course. So it's available to you right away. But you know, if you get stuck and you're not sure who to reach out to, you can always just, you know, email me or Erica. If you put in a course issue report and it's not actually an issue, that's totally fine too. We'll see it at least. And yeah, so we've got about 5 minutes left. Any last questions or nuggets of wisdom that you'd like to share with the rest of the group on teaching the course? Anybody?
Adita, just for my own knowledge, so in the fall, are we doing any 16-week? Is everything going to be 8 week, I believe?
I'm pretty sure it's all 8 week, and Carmen is nodding.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep. There would have to be significant data showing that 16 weeks works better in order for us to run a 16-week section. Yep. Any other questions, comments, concerns, advice? Horses, maybe, that you want to share with the rest of the group? There goes Vicky.
I'd be happy just for the kittens, actually, but you know. Thank you.
See? She just went to the bathroom also. Oh, there's the horse. Okay, cool. It's just a pet parade now. Awesome. Well,
thanks, Vicky.
Thanks, Vicky. So like I said, if you have any questions, there are a couple of different avenues. But if you're really in a pinch, feel free to just send an email. I believe email addresses for Erica and myself are both at the bottom of the instructor guide, or at least you'll find like the whole ID team email on there. And yeah, so I think that's probably it for today. Thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you, Erica, for leading us through the course. And yeah, have a good summer semester. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric?